you're getting off of this, and people probably have already left. If you're still here listening to this after our rant, we appreciate you. You guys are awesome. But we are going to talk about Gotham Central. Now, this is going to be very interesting. Pretty much all of this podcast is going to be about this, because this is the first time we have both read this. We read all 40 issues since last podcast, which was like 6 days.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting. I told Clay, I was like, hey, you think you can read 40 issues in the next 4 or 5 days? And he was like, yeah, I probably could. And so we did this. But the reason why I wanted to cover this is because for some of you that are probably listening to this on my actual channel right now, Bat from the Box, I got really big on YouTube. Not really big, but, 20,000 subs. Humble brag. I got success, is what I'll say, on YouTube by covering the show Gotham. And the show Gotham was supposed to be based off of this comic book. And after reading this and having seen all of Gotham, they could not be farther apart from each other. And if Gotham was even half of what this series was, it would have been fucking amazing.
Oh my god. Okay, so when Juice asked me, hey, do you think we can read this book and compare it to the TV show? I told him, hey, I've only seen the first season and half of the second. I can't talk much about the TV show. And he said, okay, that's perfect. I've seen every season. You've just read the book. Yeah. We can easily compare these things. I was like, okay, that's awesome. So when I read this, I've read it all the way through. Juice, how many times did we see Bruce Wayne in this book?
Not once.
Not once. Now, I will say, his name dropped possibly 2 to 4 times.
Yeah.
2 to 4 times talking about his lawyers being involved in either helping the police or helping the city. Yeah. Now, one thing that people will probably be like, oh, but they did show Batman. Yes, they showed Batman in this book. But he is always in the background. He is always in shadow. He is never fully fledged Batman. Maybe once.
In a couple issues.
Yes. Maybe in a couple issues you see him. But majority of the time, it is very much in shadow and in very small. He doesn't have like a large conversation. The longest conversation he had was in a parking garage with the DA, and boom, that was it. Just like one comic and 40 issues. That was it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say, we talked about, like, we hadn't even finished all the issues, and we were already like, oh my god, if this book was an actual TV show, it would be awesome on HBO Max. It could have like either 40 episodes, or even it could be something like 8 episode seasons and have like just smaller arcs. There are so many characters in here that you genuinely start to care about and genuinely learn about.
Yeah, 100%.
This is amazing.
The police department. Yeah, this police department in Gotham Central is diverse. You have white people, you have black people, you have Mexicans, you have freaking Asians. Like, you have a bunch of diversity in here, which is really awesome. You have, there's so much character development in here that happens, like, between issues and between arcs that Gotham just never had. Like, Gotham, and I tell people every time, because what happened was I was in love with Gotham from season 1 through 3. 4 and 5 made me hate that show and just resent it so much because they were repeating stories. Like, if you watch Gotham seasons 1 through 3, and at the end of 3, if you were like, they should have ended the series there, they thought they were going to get canceled at the end of season 3. That's why Bruce ends the series of season 3 on top of a rooftop, and his, like, freaking long coat is blowing in the wind, because it's symbolizing this boy will be Batman in the future. But then they were like, oh, we got another season. And they were like, oh, crap, what are we going to do? And then he ended up getting like a suit and crap. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And but 1 through 3 would have been perfect. This show, or this comic book, like, just because what we would say the longest arc is probably 5 issues, which is Joker's.
Yeah. I would say so. Yeah.
So like a 5-issue arc could easily 5 issues could easily be 8 to 10 episodes, in my opinion.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
and that
most
could be your
most
whole.
of these issues could possibly be cut in half
Yeah,
to
for sure.
become 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Uh,
So yeah, because oh my god. Okay, so let's just run down the arcs by characters that happen in here, and we'll kind of compare them to Gotham.
okay.
So there is a Two Face arc. There is a Joker arc.
Well,
There.
the very first arc,
Mhm.
introducing all of our characters, actually has to do with Mister Freeze.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
here's the big thing. Whenever you look at Gotham, the TV show, these characters have not been established. They are being
Yeah.
created. In this series, because
Hmm.
Batman is a real thing, is already an established character, so are
Yeah.
his villains. They're widely known. They're known as the freaks
Yeah.
of, the GCPD. And,
Hmm.
you are not surprised when you see one, but when you see one, you're like, holy shit. And
Yeah.
that's the really cool thing about this book. So
Yeah.
there is a lot of ground level stuff, a lot of just like, you know, 9 to 5 freaking GCPD, day, day by day stuff.
Yeah. The
But
focus was the GCPD, not the villains, where
exactly.
that is what Gotham the show did. Gotham
Yes.
focused on Batman and the villains, where it should have focused on the GCPD. And unfortunately, when it came to the Gotham show, it was just Bullock and freaking Gordon, and that was it. Gordon's not even in this book. He shows
He
up like
he
once,
shows up I think twice.
twice.
I
I
think
know with
so.
the ceremony,
Oh
he's
well,
mentioned a lot.
he's mentioned a lot. Okay, so he only shows up once, and
Yeah,
he's giving a speech to, I believe it is like a graduating class
yeah,
in at a school or whatever. Uh, and I think that is awesome.
hmm,
Like, now, don't get me wrong, seeing a younger Gordon, if you would have taken a younger Gordon and a
yeah,
younger Bullock, but still
hmm,
have a lot of these characters here in the GCPD,
yeah,
I think it still would have worked. I think it still would
hmm,
have worked, and we still would have had characters that fans know and love.
yeah,
This, I thought this was really cool because these characters, Sarge, Driver, freaking McDonald eventually,
hmm,
Chris, Montoya, these are characters that I did not even know about. I knew about Chris because
hmm.
one of my favorite parts of the Gotham. Uh,
Sawyer. You
uh,
know about Sawyer.
I do know about Sawyer. Of course, she comes from Metropolis. That's where I know her from. A lot of the
Hmm.
Superman books, but most of these characters I did not know of. So seeing them for the first time, seeing how they interact with each other, yeah, they're jerks most of the time to each other, but it's out of love because they truly
Yeah,
treat the MCU as a family. And
yeah,
I
for
thought
sure.
that was cool because
Yeah.
you see the ground level thuggish cops being
Hmm.
the crooked cops of Gotham, but the MCU was like, and I'm not talking Marvel Cinematic Universe, I'm talking Major
Yeah.
Crimes Unit here. They genuinely cared about dealing with crime and getting rid of it in
Yeah.
Gotham. And that was awesome.
Yeah, no, the characters. So the thing is, people will be like, "Oh, those characters were in Gotham," and some of them were, but they were nothing like they were in these books. So Chris and Montoya, if I'm not mistaken, are actually in season 1 or 2 because Montoya was banging out Barbara Gordon before Gordon was dating her, like way sooner. She never comes back after season 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, okay,
And so her partner was just a black guy, but I'm pretty sure it was Chris. Is what they meant to be.
okay.
They're in this series the whole pretty much every issue, and they have a huge arc. At, like the whole, basically,
But
if
that's,
you were to pick two main characters, it would be Chris and Montoya. I would think.
yes, I would also put Driver in there. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I really can't say none of these are not main characters. Because the really cool thing is, just like an actual major crimes unit,
Hmm.
whoever is open to help on a case, they get those people to help. And so
Yeah.
you have the entire MCU working one case to get multiple angles,
Yeah.
and you get, it's just, I truly think this is awesome. The
Yeah.
way Brubaker and Rucka wrote this, they were so in sync. I could
Mhm.
barely tell the difference between writing whenever, one issue to the other. It was
Yeah.
that smooth. Now, seeing the inside affairs of MCU as well, because we quickly learn that Driver has a crush on this I forgot the redheaded one.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm forgetting her name,
I can't
but
remember her name, but she also becomes a very big part of the story because her partner Nate
Nate. Yeah.
ends up, spoiler alert,
Hmm.
ends up dying in a
Yeah.
very dramatic way, and it deals with the Joker arc.
Yeah.
And
Well, so let's before we dive into a lot of this stuff, let's just talk about how, because yeah, that what he was about to like get to is though it also involves Batman because the way they use Batman in this is so good. Again, I know a lot of people are like, oh well, Gotham was supposed to be before everything, but the point is Gotham was gonna should have been this, and that's what they were referring to. And even when you read this first, they reprinted this series when Gotham came out, and they were advertising Gotham on this series. Like if you were to buy the original books,
yeah,
like or the reprints is what I should say. So there was no like mystery that these two things were linked, and they should have been more like this, but it just got away from Fox. And I said it even when I was reviewing the show. It always felt like Fox never knew what they wanted this show to be, and they were just grasping at straws. I said that in all of my videos. You can go check that out. But anyways, um, the thing about this series is again, there's a whole group of people that constantly you see them growing as like just characters, like really great characters, and the way these issues ended would have been perfect show cliffhangers to bring you back to the next episode. Because some of these issues, I had to read arcs. Like I had to read them in arcs. I was like, all right, well, if I'm starting this, I'm reading 5 issues because it was insane. So we're gonna. What was your favorite arc?
my favorite arc, if I had to put it down to an arc, I think mine would have to be, gosh, it is either the Mad Hatter arc
That was really good.
or the Robbins arc.
Yeah, that one was pretty awesome too. Not gonna lie. So that was the thing
Be-
too. Just to throw out. So the first arc was Mister Freeze. So they centered like the crimes around the actual. So there was crimes with the actual characters, but then you were also kind of realizing that the crooked cops were involved in some of these things were really interesting because there was
yes.
a couple one shots. So
Mm-hmm.
there was, and like every show has like a filler episode, but even the one shots that happened in this series were pretty interesting because there was one issue 11 where the secretary in the whole MCU
Stacy.
was daydreaming. Yeah, Stacy. She was daydreaming about kissing Batman or having like this romantic fling with Batman, and it was just a really interesting comic because like she's constantly just around all this like murder and hearing about all this stuff, and she's the one that has to turn on the signal every time because there's this weird clause that the MCU or the GCPD can't be attached to Batman, so they can't turn on the light like Gordon did. So they have to have this chick named Stacy. It's basically her job, and she's a secretary. So that's a one shot. There was a one shot with Poison Ivy, to where these crooked cops were they were messing with a drug dealer or like a somebody that's like a druggie on the streets. They were beating the shit out of him. This one homeless girl sees it happen. She tries to run away, and they end up breaking her neck, and she dies. And they try to cover it up. Well, it turns out that this young girl was actually friends with Poison Ivy, and Poison Ivy would take care of all the kids in this park, and she gets revenge on these crooked cops by setting them up, and she ends up like killing them. And like it's just a really good way of using these characters because they were all established, and then like they don't focus on these characters. They actually did all this detective work, and then the character would just show up, do their thing, and they were gone. And like it was so good. I completely forgot about the Robbins arc. The Robbins arc was really good, and I'll let you talk about the Robbins arc. But I gotta mention, and people are gonna be like, "Oh, I knew it." Mine was the Joker, just because of the way they set it up. So what was happening in the Joker thing was this was after the Freeze arc, if I'm not. Oh no, after the Two Face arc. There was a small Two
Yeah.
Face arc, with between Montoya and Harvey Dent, which Harvey Dent was obsessed with Montoya, and he thought she loved her, but Montoya's like, I'm a lesbian. What the fuck are you doing? And he was like, no, 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 and he was just killing people or setting her up so they could be together. So after that arc, there's some stuff happening with the GCPD, and it's I think the commissioner of the GCPD, correct, talking to the mayor, and he's all like, "Dude, we need overtime." They're basically talking just normal shit any job would talk about. Like, I need
Politics. Yeah.
overtime. Yeah, politics. And the mayor's like, "No, we can't do that. We need to cut budgets." And out of nowhere, the mayor's head gets blown off, and you're just like, "What?" Like, that's a perfect way to start an episode or end an episode. And so, like, the mayor's head gets blown off, and you're like, holy crap. So, of course, they're like, how did this happen? Where did the shooter happen from? And as they're doing detective work, a superintendent across the city gets shot. And they're just like, what's happening? And so they go and they rush and they try to do this. And while they're examining, waiting to see where the shooter's coming from, the cops are like, all right, the day's almost done. They're working for like 4 or 5 hours on this crime scene. Then somebody unloads on the cops and blows off one of the examiner's hands. Another cop gets like shot in the chest a couple times. And so they're dealing with this crazy sniper and nobody knows what's happening. It turns out that an email gets sent to like a reporter or something, and it's the Joker saying that like vote for the Batman as mayor because the mayor's been murdered. And so they're like Batman for mayor, and it's like sponsored by the clown who laughs and blah blah blah, all this crazy stuff. And so everybody is freaked out because it's possibly the Joker. So they go to turn on the bat signal. Like the commissioner's like, oh, and he grabs that chick Stacy. He's like, we got to go to the roof, and she's like, no, I don't want to go to the roof. She's like, we have to wait for Sawyer or whatever, blah blah. And he's like, nah, fuck this. He was like, we're going to the roof and we're turning this on. It's Joker. We have to get Batman. They go to turn on the roof, and somebody starts sniping on top of the roof. So this chick Stacy almost gets shot, but Batman shows up and saves them.
Now,
And he's all
let's
like,
go ahead and right there talk about Stacy's real job in the MCU. And it sucks, people.
yeah,
The reason, now she is a secretary, and they very much treat her like a secretary, but the main reason why they hired her in the first place is with this continuity, the relationship with the GCPD and Batman were supposed to be non-existent. The reason being is when, a crime went down, Batman was involved because of this whole back signal thing, and the judge basically said, with Batman being involved, I can't prosecute, these people because a vigilante was involved. And the GCPD knew about it. So because of this, basically the way they treat Stacy is, hey, you were not technically hired by the GCPD, you were hired by the state, and you're technically, when you come up on the ceiling, you were technically a civilian, and you're the one turning on the light, so that way no one from the MCU or the GCPD, is turning on that light. Thus,
they're not liable.
Yeah, they're not liable for whatever happens to the case. So that is why this individual, I forgot his name.
He was the commissioner of he was basically the night version of Maggie.
Yeah.
So like whatever their stuff is. But anyways,
he was the one who forced Stacy up there. Yeah.
And Batman saves them, gets him in there, and he like flies off to go try to find the Joker. Well, after that happens, then a news broadcast happens, and the Joker takes over the comms and says like, who's going to be next? And he has all of these video cameras across the city with a timer counting down to see who's going to be the next victim. And so the police are like freaking out. They're trying to go across and try to find all these places, but they only find 7 of the 8 locations. And they're like, we don't know where this one's at. They can't find it. And it turns out that once it happens, because they're like counting down, they're like, somebody's going to die right now. It's a classic Joker bang gun. And they're just like, oh my God. And then it starts counting upwards. And it turns out that Joker has kidnapped a reporter that they've been showing this whole time. And he's going to blow her up. And like now they're freaking out about that. So like it was so good. Like the drama in those issues were so good. And the crazy thing is before, like when that happens, Joker turns himself in. He just shows up on the street and he's like, hi, can you tell me where so-and-so is, or where I can see so-and-so? The cop punches him in the face, arrests Joker, and they take him into the interrogation room. and they're like, oh yeah, let's go ahead and take him up there. And of course, they try to get anything out of Joker, but you can't do that with Joker. Like, he's not going to give you anything you want. I mean, if you've seen The Dark Knight, you know he's not going to. But it was insane because, if I'm not mistaken, does Batman show up in there? I don't think he does. Does he?
No, not
Uh,
exactly, because one of the big things about this was the uh, political standpoint at this on this as well. Because
mhm.
in the very beginning of this arc, the mayor does get shot. A new mayor comes in,
Yeah.
and he is not liked by the citizens of Gotham, so he needs to pretty much put on the mean face and try to be the mayor that he was really never supposed to be. And he
Yeah.
forces the commissioner to get this old Joker gang that pretty much like just worships Joker, and they're a
Yeah.
whole bunch of like freaking uh sideshow Bob type clowns.
Yeah.
And they get picked up by the GCPD in front of media. The mayor wanted them to get busted in front of media so that way it looks like they had the upper hand on this whole Joker thing. But because
Yeah.
of that, they were wasting time. The GCPD did not want to do it, but orders are orders, and they did it. That was when afterward. That's when Joker came in, and uh, it ends up being, I forgot who it was. The Batman actually shows up at the DA's office,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
and he's the one that says, "Hey, we need to find, this bomb. I think I know."
Oh, okay. I remember. So what happened was, since everybody was being shot, they were kind of basically told everybody to stay home, and they're like, Christmas is basically canceled because we don't know what's happening. That's what the mayor was saying. And
Yes.
then they catch the Joker, and they're like, oh, if we caught the Joker, we caught these guys. Like, everybody can go out and shop, and places were going to open up so they could actually go and everybody can shop. They were going to basically, stores were opening through the night so people can get their Christmas shopping done. And Batman shows up in the commissioner's office. He was like, tell me what's different between before catching the Joker and now. And he's all like, there's people on the streets. And they're like, oh crap, because they're trying to find out where this bomb is. The thing is, now people are out shopping, meaning this bomb can go ahead and blow up a whole bunch of people. So, yeah, it was really insane because, like, granted, we are telling the shittiest way of describing these books, by
Yeah,
the
we're
way.
we're just hitting highlights where we really are.
Yeah,
But
you should read
we
this series.
it is 40 issues.
Yeah,
So we can't technically go page by page from issue 1 to issue 40. We would have a 13-hour podcast. But
yeah,
like it is awesome. This is, the moment where I believe her name is, gosh, what is her name?
Molin.
Uh
The wait,
the
the
the redhead
Maggie, or
uh it's
you talking about the cop or the?
the redheaded cop. Yes, she is in the car with Nate, and she's the one that realizes,
Yeah,
oh crap, like there's tons of people out here. She is
yeah,
in one of these toy stores. She's the one that
hmm,
figures it out. Nate is actually the one that unfortunately dies through the
yeah,
explosion. But this ripples all the way, literally all the way through to even the Batman or the Robin arc
yeah,
that I'm about to talk about. This confrontation between Joker and Batman causing
hmm,
Nate to die ripples all the way. This is issue like 15, 16, ripples
yeah.
all the way to about 30,
So like
31.
35
Yeah,
or some shit like that.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
So they planned this book out immensely, and it was awesome. Now, the
yeah. Before
story.
you jump into Robin,
Okay,
before you
okay.
jump into that though, because I do want to, this is a comparing a Gotham thing. So the way that this was so planned out is so good. It was something that didn't happen in Gotham a lot. I've mentioned this in multiple videos on this channel. If you're listening to it on my YouTube channel, or if you're listening to us on the podcast, I've mentioned this a lot on my Batman channel. But Gotham repeated storylines a lot. Like, there was, if I'm not mistaken, Penguin rose and fell from power like 3 times in that series. Riddler lost his mind like twice. Gordon constantly, almost died, came back, almost died, almost came back, whatever. Fish Mooney died, came back. Like, people just didn't die in that series. Like, it was crazy, and we had a bunch of the same stories over and over and over. that doesn't happen here. It seemed like everything was so meticulously planned out. There is stuff that happens at the start of the series that pays off at the very end. And you're just like, holy crap. Like it was so well thought out. And one thing we didn't mention in the Joker story, but I kind of picked up on it, was did you notice that in the interrogation scene, he takes over the cop when he kills the cop in the interrogation room? That's kind of similar to the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
When he beats up that dude and then, gets his phone call or whatever.
Yep.
So yeah, the series was great in that aspect, but that's something that was missing in Gotham. Gotham didn't seem like, so the first season, which didn't happen until the very last arc, which was like the last 4-ish episodes in Gotham. In season 1, it was the flavor of the week for like 20 episodes. It was just like, here's a bad guy, we catch him at the end. Here's a bad guy, we catch him at the end. And the only time that I knew there was a 2-parter was something about like the Goat Man or something like that. That I think was like 2 episodes because it had to do with Bullock, like somebody that he had to deal with a long time ago. And then the very last 4 episodes had to do with the ogre. So the first season didn't really have arcs. It was just like flavor of the week most of the time.
Yes.
But this one was so well thought out. Season 2 came along, seemed like they really focused. They tried to do it a little bit more. It was like the first half of the season was like, we'll deal with Freeze, and then the second half we'll deal with Mad Hatter or whatever. And they could have easily done that in the show. Granted, if Gotham Central ever becomes something, it should be 8 to 10 episodes max. Should not be anything more than that for a season. But it was fantastic. But again, like I said, with a Joker arc, that could have been a whole 4 episodes or something, 5 episodes in a show. It could have been a whole season. But the one Clay's about to talk about, again, if this would have been like a random 2 to 3 issues or episodes, it would have been fantastic television.
Yes. Now, starting at issue 33, now I will say also, these covers for this series are phenomenal. They are great. Yeah. It feels like an actual indie comic rather than a like DC comic, which I thought was really, really cool. Mm-hmm. One of Brubaker's specialties. But the very first issue, first page, you see Dead Robin Part 1. And you see Robin with a whole bunch of blood around his cape. And there's an outline of him on the ground. Police officers are checking it out. They're like, holy crap, the Boy Wonder is dead. People are freaking out. And they want to keep it hush-hush with the media. That's one of the biggest things because this is Robin. And so they're thinking, holy crap, if this is actually Robin, like the real Robin, and we ID him, we might get that much closer to IDing the real Batman. That's something that Montoya brings up. Now, Montoya is somebody who is very much still in favor of Batman being, the person that he is. Chris is somebody who, and majority of the MCU as well as the GCPD, really hates that they have to call upon Batman whenever they do.
Yeah.
Because
one thing we...
Oh, go ahead.
Go for it. Yeah, I was going to say, one thing we should point out, because I'm pretty sure people are going to question it, because they were both in it, but Bullock is in this series, but he is not part of the GCPD anymore. Because what happened...
Yeah.
The reason why Gordon is not on the force anymore is because he got shot. And what happened was Bullock and Montoya, because this was a big thing about Montoya, like a majority of this time, she's like on the edge. Like a lot of people think she's on the edge of crossing. And this plays out on the very final issue.
We will talk about that also.
Yeah. She has a great arc in this whole series. But Montoya, Bullock basically saved her life because what happened was he was not cool with the person that ended up shooting up Gordon got away scot-free. And he was put on witness protection or whatever. Bullock found out about the witness protection and told the mob who wanted him, and they killed him.
Yeah.
And so everybody was all like,
gangster.
What the fuck? And so, so he lost his job, but he was like, fuck it. He shot Gordon. Like, we're not going to let this rat bastard get away. And Bullock's always towed the line. He's been an old school cop. Like, he'll beat the shit out of you to get answers or whatever. And so there's a cool relationship between her. And it's not part of this arc, right? There was like there was a crazy arc.
It's the Mad Hatter arc, which was my second favorite. Which is my second favorite. Now, this Robin one, it does play out a lot even in the very first arc. They do not like calling upon Batman. In the very first arc, Driver goes all the way to the commissioner or the DA, and he says, "I do not want you calling Batman on this. Mr. Freeze killed my freaking partner. It is our job to find him. It is our job to bring him in. We don't need Batman." Now, things happen and Batman gets called in, whatever. But that's majorly how these individuals think about Batman. Because they have that blue blood pride.
I think the girls with their nails done now.